So the text of the Constitution tells us how many electors you get, but the crucial language is that language about each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof shall direct. So the real question is, does that give states unfettered discretion, unlimited, unconstrained discretion, to appoint electors in any way they choose and to place constraints about what those electors can do once they're chosen, including fining them if they fail to carry out their instructions? Or does the word elector convey a notion of independent judgment?
We quickly see, even in the first presidential election, 5 states saying the state legislature is going to select them, 4 states saying that the people are going to select who the electors are, the voters are going to decide, and then Virginia splitting the difference where, we're going to do it district by district, but the people are going to vote. So you see a variety of ways of selecting electors over time. And there's a way in which James Wilson makes 2 really great predictions at the convention about how this is going to play out. So James Wilson, the supporter of a direct popular vote, if he looks at the Electoral College as a compromise that's getting him as close as possible to direct popular vote that was practicable at the time, his prediction is that we're going to leave it to the states. Some states are then going to give voters a direct say in who the electors are, and then other states are going to be pressured by their voters to do exactly the same. We're going to get something very close to popular election. And that's what we see. Perhaps the most interesting big point about this implementation history is that once some states began giving their voters a direct say over who the electors would be, which happened all the way from the very beginning, it would prove hard in the long run for other states not to do the same. And so even by 1804, the first election that is held under the 12th Amendment, most states are letting voters pick their electors. By 1828, it's only South Carolina that doesn't. And so there's this way in which we allow experimentation in the states, but they settle on a very popular system where it's the popular vote determining who the electors are.
It's up to the states to decide how to choose electors. But then the question is, can the states condition any constraints on that choice? And that's the matter for disagreement. Once the electors are chosen, can they exercise independent judgment, or do they have to do what their appointing states say? Because it's not really a danger that you'll have electors switch side and fix the election. And then across all of the American history, only one elector has switched sides and voted for a candidate from the other major party. That elector, Samuel Miles, is referred to as the first faithless elector, but he was an elector from Pennsylvania in 1796, one of 2 Adams electors appointed under the rules specified by Pennsylvania, but the government was supposed to certify the appointments too soon after the election. This guy believed that Adams would receive more votes than he did. He certified 13 Jefferson and 2 Adams electors, but in fact, Jefferson prevailed. Miles took this mistake seriously. So what should he do? Faced with the fact that he shouldn't have been appointed at all, Miles voted contrary to how he was presumptively pledged. Rather than voting for Adams, Miles voted for Jefferson, leading a prominent critic to write, "What? Do I choose Samuel Miles to determine for me whether John Adams or Thomas Jefferson shall be president? No, I choose him to act, not to think." And that's how the debate about faithless electors is born.
It is the case historically that you have, let's see, I have the account here of 157 faithless electors throughout the course of American history. So it, as a matter of practice, we see it's a vanishingly small percentage of total electors, but you do see electors choosing who they want versus who their states decide throughout American history. 63 of them all come from the election of 1872, where the Democratic candidate who lost the election dies between election day and the day that the Electoral College meets. And so these electors then no longer select Mr. Greeley, who's passed away, but select other Democrats. So that's a lot of them. But you also do see a range of other electors who don't vote, who vote out of line with who voted for, who their state voted for president. Everyone from, we had a DC rep in 2000 who didn't go with their votes, but instead abstained as a matter of protest against the fact that DC doesn't have congressional representation. We see in 1968 someone saying, I'm going to vote for the segregationist George Wallace over Richard Nixon. And then we see, there's this great example in 2004 where an elector in Minnesota, he's anonymous, so we don't know exactly who it is, but they accidentally vote for John Edwards for president rather than John Kerry. So John Kerry was the Democratic nominee, John Edwards was his running mate, and they accidentally wrote John Edwards twice. And so just as a clerical error, we have a vote for John Edwards in 2004 in the Electoral College.
Let's start with McPherson versus Blacker. That was a case that was really relevant in Bush versus Gore. Remember Bush versus Gore in 2000, where the Supreme Court said that the recount of the incredibly close election, which came down to something like 387 votes in the state of Florida, could not proceed because the Supreme Court said that for the Florida Supreme Court to order the recount in a way that changed the way the state legislature had said that recount should proceed was a violation of the right of the state legislature to specify the means of choosing electors in whatever way they please. That was the basic point of McPherson versus Blacker, that there should be unfettered discretion on the point of the state to appoint electors without any review by the courts. And now I'm looking at this great case, and it was decided in 1892, and it was the validity of a state law providing for the appointment of electors was drawn into question. And the question was whether the state could fix a date for the meeting of electors which differed from the date prescribed by an act of Congress. And the court held that basically the state has complete authority to choose electors as they please. So that's the McPherson case. And now let's find the Ray case. And it's got a really fun quotation in it. It's Ray versus Blair, and it's 1952. And the Supreme Court of Alabama is considering a law which basically requires electors to take a pledge to support and aid the nominees of the Democratic Convention. And a majority of the court, in an opinion by Justice Reed, said, yes, you can require the pledge. The language of Article 2 is not so clear, and the 12th Amendment changed things. Neither the language of Article 2, Section 1, nor that of the 12th Amendment forbids a party to require from candidates in its primary a pledge of political conformity with the aims of the party. Unless such a requirement is implicit, certainly neither provision of the Constitution requires a state political party to accept people as candidates who refuse to agree to abide by the party's request. So Justice Reed basically says, the language doesn't forbid states from requiring a pledge, and we won't either. Now, what's really fun about this case is the dissenting opinion by Justice Jackson. And here, Justice Jackson has another great quotation and a really fun statement, and we have it here. No one faithful to our history can deny that the plan originally contemplated what is implicit in its text, that electors would be free agent to exercise an independent and nonpartisan judgment as to the men best qualified for our nation's highest offices. And then, to make things even more delightful, Justice Jackson goes on to quote Gilbert and Sullivan. He said, this arrangement miscarried. Electors, although often personally eminent, independent, and respectable, officially became voluntary party lackeys and intellectual non-entities, to whose memory we might justly paraphrase a tuneful satire. They always voted at their party's call, and they never thought of thinking for themselves at all. And that's from HMS Pinafore, which is the Gilbert and Sullivan opera. So, but it's a memorable phrase because it suggests basically electors were supposed to be these independent thinkers and they became party hacks. What's significant about this opinion, in addition to its excellent Gilbert Sullivan quotation, is that Justice Jackson's writing a dissent. So now you know the text, and now you know the two big cases. McPherson and Blacker says the state is free to change the date of the election, and the Ray case says that Alabama is free to require its electors to take a pledge. So in order to rule in favor of the other side, you'd have to overturn Reed, resurrect Justice Jackson's dissent, and say that as a matter of original understanding, the court got it wrong, and both the text of the Constitution, as originally understood, as glossed through the 12th Amendment, requires electors to have independent judgment.